Welcome to Crash Book, your book in a capsule. The place where we present books in short and simple knowledge capsules, so you can benefit from them anytime, anywhere. Whether you're on public transport or during waiting times, here you can listen to summaries of the most important books and feed your mind with new ideas that help you develop your life. So, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive all new content and enjoy every moment of this knowledge journey with us. Today, we begin a journey into the power of now by Eckhart Tolle, a book that has changed the lives of millions by teaching us how to break free from the mental chatter that holds us hostage. In a world filled with distractions and a never-ending rush to the future, Tolle encourages us to turn inward and embrace the peace of the present moment. Let's embark on this transformational journey, starting with the first part of the book. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. Eckhart Tolle begins the book with an eye-opening insight. You are not your mind. At first glance, this might seem like an obvious statement, but for many of us, the mind is the most dominant force in our lives. We tend to identify ourselves with the endless stream of thoughts that occupy our minds, believing that we are defined by them. Tolle explains that the mind is simply a tool, but one that is often out of control. The constant chatter of the mind creates what he refers to as the ego, a false sense of self that thrives on attachment to the past and fear of the future. We cling to our memories, our stories, and our identities, all of which are products of the mind. But in reality, these thoughts are just temporary phenomena, not the essence of who we are. The true self, Tolle suggests, is beyond the mind, in the stillness of the present moment. The mind, while a useful tool, often distracts us from the deeper sense of being that exists when we are fully present. The chapter encourages us to step back from our thoughts, to become the observer rather than the participant in the constant stream of mental noise. Through awareness and presence, we can begin to free ourselves from the ego and reconnect with the true self that exists beyond the mind. Chapter 2. Consciousness, the way out of pain. In the second chapter, Tolle introduces the concept of consciousness as the key to breaking free from the pain and suffering caused by the mind. He explains that the root of much human suffering is our identification with the mind and the ego. The ego is always seeking more recognition, more control, more things, and this constant seeking creates an endless cycle of dissatisfaction and pain. When we identify with the ego, we are constantly trapped in the past, replaying old hurts and regrets, or in the future, anxious about what might happen. This constant movement away from the present moment is the source of much of our emotional pain. However, Tolle offers a way out: consciousness. Consciousness, in this sense, refers to the awareness of the present moment. By becoming aware of the thoughts and emotions that arise, we can begin to distance ourselves from them and see them for what they truly are: fleeting and impermanent. Tolle also introduces the concept of the pain body, a collection of negative emotions stored in the body from past traumas. The pain body is activated when we are triggered by certain situations, and it feeds off negative emotions. But through consciousness and presence, we can begin to dissolve the pain body, reducing its hold over us. The key to freeing ourselves from suffering, Tolle argues, is to become aware of the present moment and stop identifying with the past or future. By observing our thoughts without judgment, we can break free from the grip of the ego and experience the freedom that comes with being fully present. Chapter 3. Moving deeply into the now. The third chapter focuses on the practical application of living in the now. Tolle emphasizes that the present moment is all there is. The past and future are simply mental constructs, not real. We often live as if the present moment is not enough, always striving for something better in the future or lamenting what happened in the past. This constant preoccupation with time keeps us from experiencing the richness of life that is available in the present. Tolle suggests that in order to truly experience life, we must move deeply into the now. He encourages us to become fully present in whatever we are doing, whether it's walking, eating, or talking to someone. When we give our full attention to the present moment, we begin to experience a sense of peace and aliveness that can't be found by chasing future goals or dwelling on the past. Tolle also explains that when we are present, we align ourselves with the deeper dimension of life, what he calls the unmanifested. The unmanifested is the timeless, formless essence that is always present but often hidden beneath the surface of our thoughts and actions. By moving deeply into the now, we can tap into this timeless presence and experience a deeper connection with life itself. Chapter 4. Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. In the fourth chapter, Tolle dives deeper into the ways the mind resists being in the present moment. The mind is constantly seeking distractions, always pulling us away from the now and into the past or future. These distractions are often fueled by the ego, which feeds on stories, judgments, and attachments. When we live through the ego, we are constantly running away from the present moment, either by rehashing old memories or projecting ourselves into an imagined future. Tolle explains that the mind's tendency to avoid the now is rooted in fear of facing the truth of who we are. The ego is afraid of losing control, and so it keeps us occupied with endless thoughts, preventing us from experiencing the peace that comes with true presence. Tolle offers a powerful solution: mindfulness. By becoming mindful of our thoughts and emotions, we can break free from the mind's strategies and return to the present moment. He encourages us to observe our thoughts without judgment, to let them pass through us without becoming attached to them. Through this practice, we can begin to shift our focus from the mind's distractions to the deeper awareness that lies within us. The more we practice mindfulness, the more we can access the present moment and experience the peace that is always available to us. Chapter 5. Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. In this chapter, Tolle explains the different strategies the mind uses to keep us from being fully present. Our minds are not accustomed to being still and present. Instead, they are constantly searching for distractions and ways to avoid the reality of the present moment. The mind feeds on past memories and future projections, and this constant habit of wandering keeps us from experiencing the now. Tolle explains that these mental strategies are deeply ingrained in us, and we often aren't even aware of how much we resist the present moment. One of the most common strategies the mind uses is the search for something, an inner belief that something is always missing. The mind constantly urges us to chase after things, whether it's a future goal, a possession, or a status. This perpetual longing keeps us trapped in a state of dissatisfaction, constantly moving away from the present and toward an imaginary future. Tolle emphasizes that we must become conscious of these strategies and realize that true fulfillment doesn't come from external circumstances, but from being fully present in the now. The mind can also trick us into thinking that we are not ready for the present moment, that we need to prepare more, do more, or become more before we can truly embrace life as it is. This is the ego at work, keeping us stuck in a cycle of seeking. Tolle encourages readers to stop waiting for the perfect moment and instead begin experiencing life right here, right now. When we are truly present, we realize that we are already whole and complete, and nothing is missing. Chapter 6. The State of Presence. As we move into this chapter, Tolle introduces the concept of presence in greater depth. Presence is the state of being fully aware and engaged with the present moment, without the interference of the mind or ego. This state of awareness allows us to experience life as it is, without any judgments, expectations, or mental filters. Tolle describes presence as a form of pure consciousness, an inner state that is free from the distractions of the mind. When we are present, we are fully connected to the world around us, to our inner being, and to the deeper essence of life. Presence allows us to experience a sense of peace, joy, and fulfillment, because we are no longer dependent on external circumstances for our happiness. Tolle shares that the state of presence is always available to us, but it requires practice and awareness. In this state, we stop identifying with the mind's thoughts and instead tune into the deeper layer of consciousness that transcends the ego. This layer of consciousness connects us to the timeless, infinite dimension of being. By becoming present, we reconnect with the unmanifested, the essence of life that exists beyond all forms and concepts. Tolle encourages readers to regularly practice presence, especially in moments when we are caught up in mental chatter or emotional turmoil. When we can drop into the now and experience the fullness of the present moment, we experience life in its purest, most authentic form. Chapter 7. The Inner Body. In Chapter 7, Tolle introduces the idea of the inner body, which is a concept that encourages us to connect more deeply with our physical experience. The body, he says, is a direct link to the present moment. When we focus on the body, we become more anchored in the now, as the body always exists in the present, unlike the mind, which constantly oscillates between the past and future. Tolle encourages readers to become more aware of the sensations in their bodies, to feel the aliveness within them. By paying attention to the body, we can break free from the mental patterns that keep us trapped in time. The body is not just a physical object, but a living, breathing vessel that carries us through life. When we become more aware of our inner body, we can experience a deeper sense of presence and connection to life itself. This awareness of the inner body also helps to dissolve the ego, as the ego is closely tied to mental and emotional patterns. When we shift our attention to the body, we become more grounded and less caught up in the stories and distractions of the mind. Tolle advises readers to take time each day to practice being aware of their inner body, especially when we are caught in mental thought loops. By doing this, we can experience a deeper sense of stillness and peace. Chapter 8. Portals into the Unmanifested. In this chapter, Tolle takes us on a deeper exploration of the spiritual dimension of life, what he calls the unmanifested. The unmanifested is the dimension of life that exists beyond form, beyond the physical world we perceive with our senses. It is the source of all creation, the timeless essence that gives life to everything we experience. Tolle explains that the unmanifested is always present, even though it is beyond the reach of the mind's understanding. The mind can only perceive the physical world, but the unmanifested is the underlying reality that gives rise to all forms. Tolle shares that the key to accessing the unmanifested is to enter a state of deep presence, to let go of all mental concepts and become still. When we do this, we begin to experience the timeless dimension of being that is always present, even though it is hidden beneath the surface of our thoughts and experiences. There are various portals through which we can access the unmanifested, such as through deep meditation, awareness of the present moment, or simply through a state of openness and receptivity to life. These portals are not physical, but rather they are entryways into a deeper understanding of our true nature. Tolle explains that by entering the unmanifested, we can experience a profound sense of peace, stillness, and connection to the entire universe. Through these portals, we can access the deeper essence of life that is beyond all forms, all time, and all concepts. Chapter 9. The Flowering of Human Consciousness. In this chapter, Tolle explores the potential for human consciousness to evolve and transcend the limitations of the ego. He suggests that humanity is at a crucial turning point, where the awakening of individual consciousness can lead to a collective shift in the way we experience the world. The flowering of human consciousness is the realization that we are more than our minds, our thoughts, or our egoic identities. Tolle emphasizes that when we begin to live from a state of presence, we help create a more conscious world, one where love, peace, and understanding become the foundation of our interactions. The shift in consciousness is not just personal, but also collective, as it begins to influence how we relate to each other and the world. He suggests that as more individuals awaken to the present moment, they become part of a larger movement toward collective enlightenment. Tolle highlights that the flowering of consciousness is a gradual process, one that requires patience, presence, and a willingness to let go of old patterns of thought and behavior. When we no longer identify with the ego, we are free to experience the world with clarity and compassion, no longer blinded by the illusions of the past or future. The key, Tolle says, is to stay present, to keep awakening to the moment, and to be a beacon of consciousness in a world that is often lost in the noise of the mind. Chapter 10. The Meaning of Surrender. In Chapter 10, Tolle introduces the powerful concept of surrender. Surrender, as he explains, does not mean giving up or passively accepting everything that happens. Rather, surrender is the act of letting go of the need to control or resist the flow of life. It is the willingness to accept life as it is, without trying to impose our mental constructs, judgments, or expectations onto it. Tolle emphasizes that surrender is a key to spiritual awakening, as it allows us to free ourselves from the grip of the ego and the need for control. When we surrender, we stop fighting against the present moment and instead open ourselves to the flow of life as it unfolds. This act of surrender brings us into alignment with the deeper intelligence of the universe, which knows far better than the mind what is best for us. Tolle explains that the mind often resists surrender because it is attached to the idea of control and self-will. But when we allow ourselves to surrender, we experience a sense of peace and ease that is not dependent on external circumstances. Surrender is a practice, one that requires trust in the present moment and the wisdom of the universe. When we surrender, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities that life has to offer, and we become more attuned to the deeper dimensions of our being. Chapter 11. The Power of Now and the Future. In this chapter, Tolle discusses the relationship between the now and the future. While the mind often focuses on the future, worrying about what may or may not happen, Tolle emphasizes that the future is a mental projection, not a reality. The present moment is the only time that truly exists, and when we live fully in the now, we let go of the anxiety and fear that often accompany our thoughts about the future. Tolle argues that when we are fully present, we act from a place of clarity and wisdom, rather than reacting to life based on fear or anticipation. This doesn't mean that we ignore the future or avoid planning, but it means that we approach the future from a place of presence, not from the mind's obsessive need to control what happens next. Tolle explains that living in the now allows us to align with the flow of life, which is always in motion, but always rooted in the present. When we are present, we make better decisions, as we are not influenced by the projections of the mind or the fear of what might come. The future will unfold as it is meant to, and when we surrender to the now, we trust that everything will work out in its own time. This chapter reminds us that by focusing on the now, we create the best possible future, as we are no longer clouded by fear or mental distraction. Chapter 12. Relationships and the Ego. The final chapter in this section deals with the complex dynamics of relationships and the role the ego plays in them. Tolle explains that all relationships are influenced by the ego, which creates an illusion of separateness between individuals. The ego thrives on the idea of me and you, and it creates attachments, judgments, and expectations in relationships. When we identify with the ego in a relationship, we are often seeking to fill a perceived lack or to validate our sense of self through the other person. This leads to dependency, conflict, and misunderstanding. Tolle encourages us to approach relationships from a place of presence, rather than from the perspective of the ego. When we are fully present, we no longer project our needs, desires, and expectations onto others, and we can experience more authentic and harmonious connections. Tolle explains that true love in relationships arises when both people are able to step beyond the ego and experience each other as they truly are, without the filters of judgment or attachment. When we are present, we see others more clearly, and we can respond to them with compassion and understanding, rather than reacting from a place of fear or egoic need. The ego, in relationships, often creates conflict and suffering, but when we let go of the need to control or possess others, we can experience love in its purest form. Tolle's message is clear. Relationships are opportunities for awakening, and when we are present, we bring out the best in ourselves and in others. Chapter 13. The End of Your Life's Purpose. In this chapter, Tolle presents a profound perspective on the concept of life's purpose. He challenges the traditional view that our purpose is tied to achieving something in the material world. Instead, Tolle argues that the true purpose of life is to awaken to the present moment, to realize our true nature beyond the ego. He explains that the ego constantly seeks purpose in external achievements and material success, but these things are fleeting and cannot bring lasting fulfillment. The deeper purpose of life is spiritual awakening and the realization that we are already complete and whole, just as we are. Tolle stresses that when we live from a state of presence, we align with the universal consciousness, which is the true essence of life. In this way, we experience fulfillment not from external accomplishments, but but from the awareness of who we are at the deepest level. The end of life's traditional purpose, Tolle suggests, is the realization that our true purpose is to awaken to the now, to the present moment. When we stop seeking fulfillment outside of ourselves, we find that life becomes rich with meaning, peace, and joy. Chapter 14. The Power of Now in Daily Life. Tolle now brings the practice of presence into the realm of everyday life. He discusses how to incorporate the principles of the now into daily activities, from mundane tasks to more significant life decisions. The key, Tolle explains, is to bring the mind into alignment with the present moment in everything we do. Whether we are washing dishes, walking, or working, we can practice being fully present and aware of the experience, rather than being lost in thought or distractions. Tolle emphasizes that it is not necessary to isolate ourselves from the world in order to practice presence. We can do it in any situation. By becoming mindful of the present moment, we can transform ordinary tasks into opportunities for spiritual awakening. Tolle shares that this practice doesn't require special effort or focus on spiritual activities. Rather, it's about integrating the now into everything we do. He encourages readers to observe their thoughts, emotions, and reactions, and to bring their awareness back to the present whenever they find themselves slipping into mental distractions. When we begin to live from this place of awareness, life becomes more vivid, more meaningful, and less stressful. The present moment is the gateway to inner peace, and by bringing our attention to it, we invite more peace and harmony into our lives. Chapter 15. Acceptance of the Now. In this chapter, Tolle delves into the concept of acceptance, which is crucial to living in alignment with the present moment. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity, but rather the willingness to embrace whatever is happening right now, without resistance. Tolle explains that the mind often resists the present moment because it doesn't fit into our expectations or desires. But when we resist the now, we create suffering for ourselves. By accepting the present moment as it is, we free ourselves from the constant battle with reality. Tolle emphasizes that acceptance allows us to be at peace, regardless of external circumstances. When we accept the now, we stop fighting against what is, and instead, we open ourselves to the flow of life. Tolle shares that true acceptance comes from realizing that the present moment is the only reality we can experience. Everything else is just a mental projection. When we accept the now, we align ourselves with life itself and experience a sense of inner peace and freedom. The act of acceptance is an inner shift, a change in how we relate to the world. It is not about passively submitting to whatever comes our way, but about choosing to embrace whatever arises with an open heart and mind. Chapter 16. The State of Freedom. In this final chapter of the book, Tolle brings everything together, presenting the ultimate result of living in alignment with the present moment. Freedom. True freedom, he explains, is not found in external circumstances or in the ability to control the world around us. Rather, freedom is found within. It is the freedom to be present, to be who we truly are, without the constraints of the ego or the mind. Tolle shares that when we let go of the need to control, to judge, and to constantly seek approval, we experience a profound sense of freedom. This freedom is not dependent on external achievements or the approval of others. It is the freedom to simply be, to live fully in the present. The ego, Tolle says, is the source of all inner conflict, as it constantly tries to protect itself, seek validation, and create a sense of separation. But when we let go of the ego's demands and return to the present moment, we experience the freedom of being who we truly are. Tolle explains that this freedom is a state of inner peace, where there is no longer a need to chase after anything or resist what is. In this state, we are free to live fully, authentically, and without fear. True freedom comes when we realize that we are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our ego. We are the still presence beneath it all, the essence of life itself. If you've enjoyed this journey through the power of now and found value in these insights, don't forget to like and subscribe for more book summaries and thoughtful reflections. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with all our latest content, bringing more wisdom and inspiration right to your fingertips. Join our community, and let's continue exploring great books together. Your support helps us create more content to guide you on your personal growth journey. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to bringing you more life-changing wisdom.